Thank you very much. It's very exciting to be here with the Bowery Brothers. I've looked for you, wanted to talk to you for so long, and I really appreciate this opportunity. When did you realize that you were adopted?
Well, I knew right away. My mother told me, and in fact tried to adopt me out again after a few years of being adopted the first time. I can't really speak for Mick, but
Well, I always heard about your interviews and how you can make somebody cry.
cry.
You know? And I,
Don't be. It's okay.
it's hard. It's hard.
Okay.
But I was told that I was adopted, but was in denial. I was in total denial about it for years until I had my own children, and then I realized it came haunting back. You know, because I loved my family and I didn't want to ever admit that I was adopted. So, anyway, but when I had my own children, it was like that's where I started going on a search to try to find out my background. And of course, it was really hard back in the days until like these new 23andMe came up and all this sort of stuff. And it was, so I got mine as a Christmas present. I think you did too.
Yeah, I got a DNA test
yeah.
as a Christmas present.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew I was adopted, but when I took the test, and I once again, I think Mick's sort of the same, but when I took the test, I was more curious as to what my origin family was, my birth mother, father, grandparents, etc. But what I wasn't expecting was that I got this little green leaf or whatever it was that popped up, said I had a brother, and a twin brother at that, and that's how that'll
Something that's so obvious now wasn't so obvious because we've known each other for years.
Yeah,
And
we
yet
didn't
now
even
it's so
know.
obvious.
We didn't even know.
Yeah.
We didn't know we were related. Although I can honestly say that when we worked together, and we really didn't work closely, but when we worked together in the 80s, 90s, there was a kinship. I wouldn't have been able to put my finger on it back then. But
we laughed at the same jokes.
yeah, and we didn't laugh at the same jokes too.
Exactly.
So there was kind of a connection going on there, but now it makes sense.
I don't remember things that he doesn't remember as well. Like it's incredible.
I can't remember that.
Things that add up. We got the same color iPhones. Like, how do you know? Well, yeah, you got a black one. I got a black one just to prove it. I got a black one too. You know.
Well, how did it feel when you went, oh my God, I'm a twin? How did that feel?
That was awesome.
Pretty overwhelming.
Yeah.
Pretty overwhelming, but it a sense of completeness too.
Yeah,
it makes sense. Those feelings you have all your life. I think John described it at one time as like a person that loses a limb, and they can, but they can still feel. You know, they have their arm chopped off, but they can still feel it out here.
You know the phantom limb. I think they call it phantom limb. Yeah. It was like I always thought, and I have a good brother and sister family, and Mick has a long extended family, or long family, and but there was like I knew it was there, but it wasn't there.
Okay, let's talk about the Bowery Brothers. First of all, how on earth did you get to come up with the name the Bowery Brothers?
Well, that comes from our birth mother. Well, John, I'll
bit of a tramp, really. In the late 50s, our mother left her home. She was a songwriter, an aspiring songwriter, I guess you'd call it. Left her home in northern Kentucky to go to New York, the Brill Building, Tin Pan Alley, all of that kind of stuff, to try and peddle her songs. And she fell on hard times, never got any of her songs published. She ended up trying to make ends meet in New York in the Bowery district. And then there's an infamous hotel called the Sunshine Hotel. And the Sunshine Hotel was a flop house, basically. But it was a place where transient people who were trying to make it in New York either failed and stayed or failed and left.
Yeah.
And so she was there and then ended up hooking up with a guy named Anthony Coppola. And this all came through our DNA and me or tests. And he is our birth father.
No relation to Francis Ford Coppola.
We wouldn't be here if that was the case.
Yeah, we'd be talking to him.
Yeah, we hold him hostage for sure.
Absolutely.
But so the Bowery is a district in New York, and now the Bowery is an expensive place. You go there, it's $1,000 a night for a hotel. It's got, lots of great restaurants. In those days, it was the dark heart of New York. And so in an homage to our mom, our birth mother, we called ourselves the Bowery Brothers.
It just made sense.
Yeah.
So now your mother was an aspiring songwriter. Tell me a little bit about that. Was she part of your DNA musical journey?
God, I hope not.
Yeah, this song.
Because she didn't do so good.
Yeah, and the songs really weren't that great.
They were abysmal.
Well, all right. You also found out that your grandparents,
Yeah, this is weird.
were Baptist snake handlers. How did that make you feel?
Well, I've always sort of been faux religion, so that was odd for me in the first place. Second of all, it's such a weird sect.
Yeah, well, I don't mind. For me, I'm fascinated by these kinds of things because,
And I, sir, am not.
yeah, well, that's what makes us a twin. There's a Baptist sect down in northern Kentucky that is into snake handling, and the reason for that is in Ezekiel, I believe it is, in the Old Testament, they talk about those who can handle the serpent being in tune with God. And as such, they would handle snakes and avoid being bitten. And if they avoided being bitten, they would, in a sense, become enlightened.
Yeah.
So
Be more of God, as it were.
But it was fascinating. And I think also the other thing is that it really plays a role in our songwriting, because a lot of our songs are kind of roots oriented and kind of talk about, where the heart of America came from. And that's definitely one of them.
Maybe we should write a song called The Snake.
I might do that.
Yeah.
So how did the two of you feel about meeting after your DNA test?
Well, like I said, there was a bit of a completeness for me. All of a sudden, things started to connect. It was like connecting the dots, And then all these things that I wondered for so many years came together. But the wonderful thing was that when we realized how much synergy we had in the musical genre, and it really put us together John had recently just started writing lyrics after many years away from it, and he had a pile of stuff for us to work on, so it was great.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the music that you're
Well, I love it, but we're giving it away for free, so I don't know what that says.
Yeah.
But no, it's really good. It's kind of like I look at Mick, and I don't know. I think he looks at me.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a kismet.
Yeah, familiarity.
Yeah, and you know what they say, it breeds contempt, but it doesn't. Not in this case.
No.
So I write the lyrics. I have 7 chords and a capo, which really gives me about 97 chords. And Mick plays everything, engineers everything. I do the singing, and he does all the background vocals, all the music, and we just kind of get into the studio, and it does this.
Yeah.
So John, tell me about the accident, the accident on your head. What happened there? I need the truth.
That's what I alluded to earlier.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So when we knew each other, and then once again, this is kind of this weird kind of intertwining twin thing. In the 80s, I was working in the Feldman Agency in Vancouver as an agent. Mick was one of the premier musicians in our...
Yeah, they were a musical agency.
In our stable. Mm-hmm. And this was, I think, 85 or 86. We had a teletype machine. And for those of you who are younger, they don't know a teletype machine, but it was like a 400 or 500 pound giant machine that you used to send essentially a text message to another recipient. And that's how you got contracts out. And right at that time, fax machines came into vogue. And so we moved the teletype out and the fax machine in, and I was moving it in, and the teletype machine fell and clunked me on the head. And I wasn't really hurt bad, but I stopped writing lyrics. And up until that point, I had been a prolific lyricist. And I thought, well, maybe it's just because I have a little hematoma or whatever it is. And I went into a writer's block for like 30 years. It was crazy. And yet I felt like I was writing songs, and I still write this way. I write them in my head, and then I just dash them out.
You couldn't get them out of your head.
I could not get them out of my head.
Yeah.
And so fast forward to 2014, I was in Victoria. I was working the Pride Parade, and I was walking alongside of the main float, and somebody on the float took off their spiked, it was like a big red spiked kind of stripper high heel.
Like 7-inch thing.
Yeah, and tossed it, and it hit the light standard and bounced off, and puncture wound right, as you might, I don't know if you can still see it or not, but the puncture wound in the top of my head hurt like hell. But the odd thing was that all of a sudden I'm writing lyrics again. It was kind of like the initial injury got reversed, and I was able to write lyrics. And within the first 3 months, I had written 200-300 songs. It was crazy. It was just crazy.
Yeah, and I've always had lots of music, but I've always struggled with lyrics. So, John, it was just like that. There's the two halves of a whole yet again. You know?
Yeah, it was, and Mick's brilliant. I mean, you know, I don't want to blow your horn.
No.
It's too small.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, he's a multi-instrumentalist. He plays drums, he plays guitar, he plays bass, he plays keyboards, he engineers, sings like a bird.
Wow. Well,
So-
let's explore that a little bit. Mick, tell us a little bit about your musical history.
Well, my family was musical. My dad played. My brother played.
dad played?
Everybody in my family, oddly enough, everybody in my family got music lessons except for me, the adopted one. But anyway, oddly enough. But anyway, after my mom passed away from cancer when I was 9, I picked up the guitar. My brother was playing guitar one day, and I watched him play "Love Is All Around" by the Trogs. I watched him play
really?
that song. Yeah,
Oh, that's a great song. I
I watched him play it, and I went over and I figured out where his fingers went, and I figured out how to play the song. The only thing I couldn't figure out was the E minor chord. I remember he came home after where he'd gone out, and I played it for him. He says, "Where'd you learn that?" I said, "From you." He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I watched where your fingers went." I said, "But I don't know this chord." And he went, "Oh, it's just here and here." And he went, so at that point he thought I was a genius. Anyway, so my brother Kenny was like he was a wonderful champion for me throughout my career. But anyway, so I started playing. I was in my first band when I was 12, and from there that sort of morphed into getting together with great musicians out of my high school: Jeff Neal, Michael Ciccoli, Brian Armstrong. We formed a band which ended up becoming Shama, which was really well heralded. We were managed by Bruce Allen, etc. And that band broke up in 1980, and sadly. And then I was in a band called Trauma after that, which was taking Shama and Trooper and putting them together, essentially, because that's what happened. And then from there, that band split up in 83 and started a band called Paradox with my good friend Jeff Neal from the Shama days. And that band morphed into a band called Cease and Desist, which I'm still with to this very day. So basically, I've only played in about 3 or 4 bands in my life. It's all been intermingling the same people, it seems. But I should also mention that I've been Randy Bachman's bass player, lead singer for the past 21 years as well. I've had a pretty good musical career. I'm very fortunate that way, for sure.
I got to get this out because I'm a huge fan. How on earth did you get to tour with Bob Dylan?
That's a weird story, but
Yeah, well, John knows it's his backstory. But we first started in Lithuania with him. Right?
well, we started a tour in Lithuania, but how we
The
got
backstory,
is we knew each other. Mick and I knew each other in another life. I worked as an agent in the Feldman Agency in the 80s, 90s. Mick was sort of the premium musician, and I worked with a fellow agent, a guy named Steve Herman, who was an agent at that time, who is still in the business and is now the head or the vice president of Live Nation. Anyways, when we put together our first EP called Smell the Fuel, I gave Steve a copy of it. Steve is patched in with everybody. He tours Guns N' Roses and the Rolling Stones and you name it. And he gave a copy of the tunes to a friend of his who's on the management team for Dylan. And Dylan, being that kind of oddly enigmatic kind of guy, suggested that we'd never really played live, but we'd done all the studio work together, come do some tour dates in Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. And so we started off with 6 tour dates. We worked up 6 or 8 songs, and it just organically grew from there. And we ended up touring for almost 3 years on Dylan's what they call the never-ending tour, which is this
he's been going for a long
forever.
time now.
He plays everywhere. Crazy.
John, Mick, Hola Mexico. That song became a regional Mexican hit on Billboard. Wow, that must have been exciting. Tell me about this.
Well, we had gone down on a fact-finding trip to Guadalajara. We both like Mexico a lot. We go down to the beaches, separate vacations and stuff like that. But I don't know, now that we kind of hanging out more, maybe we'll go together. But anyways, we went to Guadalajara. We were in the Hilton Hotel, and we were in the bar. And I started to talk to this woman, attractive woman, and her name was May Batista. I'll never forget this. And she is a music director, I believe, for Match 92.5. It's like the top FM station in Guadalajara. Guadalajara's a big city. And I didn't even know that there was pop radio. I thought there would be mariachi music, but what do I know? And so I slipped her a CD of our very first pressing or very first mix of Hola Mexico. And she said, well, she'd have a listen. Anyways, the DJ at night started playing it. The phones apparently started to light up. Because it's a very dominant station and a very influential station, other regional stations started to pick it up and play it. And so it just through a real organic process became this hit that we just couldn't have anticipated.
Yeah, just the luck of the draw. Right bar at the right time.
It became a real big club hit.
Yeah, huge. Well,
I have to attribute that to him, his genius too.
Well,
Yeah.
in Mexico, there's these massive clubs, 1,000, 1,500 seat clubs. And all of them have hundreds, I'm exaggerating, but 50 TV screens everywhere. And so I thought, well, let's make a video, personalize it for each of the clubs. So I sent some to Senior Frogs in PV and in Cancun. And we still do this to the day. We'll make a club personalized with their logo and their contact information. And they started to play it. And because the song is a party song, it's a Mexican beach song, it's got a Mexican flavor because it's got like these horns in it, these sort of mariachi horns that Mick was brilliant in doing. And it's in English, and it's about a vacation. It just struck home. And so club goers started to ask for it. It was on a dance song, so everybody was using it on the dance floor. All of a sudden, we've probably got 400, 300 clubs across the beach towns of Mexico playing this thing. And that kind of drove it in even further into the marketplace. It was,
Wow.
Even Bob Dylan liked that song.
Yeah. We actually got, somebody sent us the other day, they had a phone capture of Dylan singing Hola Mexico, live stream. And he'll do that. He'll do covers. He's done a Beatles cover and that kind of stuff. I think he did a Pink Floyd cover. But I've got a copy of it, and I'll get it to you if you want.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Of him singing Hola Mexico. And so, yeah, it was pretty cool.
The new song or new album is called Yo Dog. Tell me about it. How did it come about? How many songs are on it? What can we expect?
Well, the release date's the first of the year.
We've probably got about 15 songs.
Yeah,
Something like that.
15 songs.
On the go.
There's lots of new songs keep going. We're giving it away for free, which seems to be the case with music these days. But really what we're doing with it is that we're looking for a few opportunities sync. So television, film, etc. Publishing. And we're other artists who are going to play it. We've had a lot of interest from other artists who are interested in covering some of the songs. I'm not sure that we're going to tour. Our schedules are pretty busy.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing a few dates.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I think we'll do some dates, but and we've had corporate interests. We had WestJet and Aero Mexico versions of Hola Mexico up for grabs for their corporate programs for their coming season for their advertising. So, you know what? We're just getting it out there and making sure that people know that we're here and what it is. But
Yeah.
it's good. It's really good.
Yeah, we're happy.
Yep.
I think it's a
Well,
great
I'm happy
project.
so that there's another twin moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Happy.
It happens every minute of the day. It's amazing.
the damnedest
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, it
It's
really is.
incredible.
Well, John, Mick, the Bowery Brothers, gosh, thank you both so much. This has just been a real treat for me. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. Continued success. I really hope the Bowery Brothers does very, very well for you. I'm so looking forward to the new year when this Yo Dog becomes released. So thank you very much, both of you.
Thanks,
Thank
John.
you so much, John.
Thank you.